Welcome to the State of the Nation weekly update, where today we're going to tackle South Africa's favorite thing, Ubuntu. We're going to talk about this concept of Ubuntu, what works, what should work, and the way it really works. But before we get into it, let me remind you that State of the Nation is kept on air because of our partnership with Pace Car Rental. I would like to encourage you to use them for your next car hire, and you can get a discount. Use our code SONA, S-O-N-A, on the Pace Car Rental the next time you hire a car, and you'll get a 5% discount. And most of the people that comment tell us they've been very happy with the service in Pace Car Rental. We use them ourselves. Very, very good company. Support them because they're supporting us. And while you're there, subscribe to this channel. That'll help us as well. Let's get into today's topic. Perhaps it was just the way I was raised, but the idea of Ubuntu sounds great, but does it work? I have been an Ubuntu skeptic my entire adult life, ever since I was first made aware of the concept. So let's see what exactly we're trying to sell when we talk about Ubuntu. Well, we've all heard the term that what Ubuntu means is, I am because we are. Now, I've never heard of 5 worse words stuck together because I'm not sure what that's meant to mean. I presume it's meant to be a catch-all for kind of like, think of others before you think of yourself. You know, it's about the community, not about the individual. The only problem is that I rarely see this on show. You know, I like the idea of karma. You do bad stuff and bad stuff might happen to you. You do good stuff and good stuff will happen to you. That's more scientific than some kind of heebie-jeebie. And I sort of like this old South African way of putting it, which is quite simply, don't be a doos. You know, do bad stuff. Why? It would be a good way to do it. But anyway, let's go into Ubuntu because we have tried to turn Ubuntu international. So I went to my good friends at AI and I said, tell me about Ubuntu and give me the main points of Ubuntu. And they came out with some wonderful things. The basic points that Ubuntu is trying to get across, according to the sources: human dignity and respect. Everybody deserves respect because they are human. Okay, I know a lot of humans that don't deserve a lot of respect, but that's just me. The next point that came up with is that compassion and empathy. You should be compassionate and empathetic. Understanding and kindness towards others are essential in life. Okay. Interconnectedness. Whatever you do affects others. You know, if you make a U-turn where you're not meant to make a U-turn, you're going to affect the lives of other people who can't get through that intersection while you're busy breaking the law. Another concept is that of shared responsibility. We're responsible not only for ourselves, but for the contribution towards the collective good. Okay. Forgiveness and reconciliation. Healing relationships restores harmony. In other words, just kind of forgive people that have done bad stuff. Right? It was central with some of the things that have happened in South Africa, like the Truth and Reconciliation process, even CODESA, where we negotiated a new South Africa, even though people had been formally at loggerheads and in some cases at war with one another. Then there's the point of generosity and sharing. Help others, especially the vulnerable. It's your moral duty to help those that are less fortunate than you. And then moral support. Uplift one another. Be there for other people, especially during hardships. All noble, noble ideas. And I thought, let's have a look to see how well we're doing with Ubuntu, especially because, you know, it's pushed so hard by many of our politicians. Presidents always talk about Ubuntu. And, you know, it just gets pushed all the time. So if it is such a good idea and it's pushed by our leaders, why are we so bad at it? That's the thing that I don't get. And let's look at a couple of points. Where's the human dignity and respect in allowing squatter camps to mushroom pit toilets in schools, bad teaching, right? Where's the human dignity in that? Surely, if you believed in Ubuntu, you would get to it, you would fix it up. But instead, we don't. We don't clean the place up. There's no dignity about the way we run it. You know, we've seen it in our cities that have gone from being well managed to being, in some cases, you know, a shadow of their former self. Litter everywhere. Where's the human dignity in that? Sewage running down the streets. There's no human dignity in that. Let's look at the next thing. What about being compassionate and empathetic? Well, we recently had the release of our latest crime statistics. And we murder in South Africa 23,000 people per year. That's just like a stunning figure. 23,000 people a year we murder, right? Of which 10,000 of them are women and children. I don't know about you, but that doesn't seem very compassionate or empathetic. Yeah, these are not bad people. These are just citizens going about their daily work. Perhaps, you know, you've got somebody you have a conflict with, you don't. There's no compassion, empathy. You kill people. Like, this is the opposite of compassion and empathy. So I'm confused. But anyway, then we are the interconnectedness. We are all together in this. We're all on the same ship. Doesn't help. If the ship goes down, we all go down. But then the government allows our hospitals to be looted and our schools to be of bad quality so that our children don't get quality education. I thought we were interconnected in this. You know, like surely if we were in an interconnected country, we lived under Ubuntu, politicians would be the first people to say, we can't have this. We can't have hospitals being looted. We can't have COVID money being stolen. We can't have a president that says beetroot cures HIV. But yet, we talk about Ubuntu. We don't practice Ubuntu. Right? Then we have a shared responsibility. In other words, we must all make the society better. What about our public servants that should be doing their job? You know, the gum chewer at Home Affairs or at the traffic department. If we have the shared responsibility, then those public servants have a shared responsibility to the citizens in front of them, the people who pay their salaries. But clearly not, right? According to those public servants, their time is more important than ours. Where is the generosity and sharing when public money is looted? We have seen various commissions that have given us in great detail how money was stolen, money that was earmarked for really, really important things. And it gets stolen. And here we are living in the country of Ubuntu, where we're meant to be generous and sharing, but we steal public money. There are even people that have done crime in stealing children's lunch money. Where's the generosity and sharing in doing something like that? And then we must have mutual support. We must help one another. Once again, I look at some of the stuff that's been in the news. How does a mutual support work when somebody has 5 Lamborghinis? You know, living down the road from the president. Where's the money come from? Well, it comes from the people that need it the most. Where's the mutual support? That Lamborghini is built on the blood of others. We had a very own former police minister say how nice it was to get free stuff from a criminal. He knew the guy was one of the top criminals in the country. He still went and slept in his penthouse apartment and said that it was wonderful because he's a pensioner. Where's the mutual support? It was fine for him, but to hell with the poor person who has to sleep in a corrugated iron home. The only one we seem to be very good at is the forgiveness and reconciliation. That we seem to be very good. And yes, we've had some wonderful cases of getting over the past, sort of, when it suited us. But that has also been weaponized to say, you know, doesn't matter that we've got all these outcomes in the Zondo Commission. and the current commissions that are going now. But we'll give them another chance. We've got a cabinet full of people that have got compromised histories. We've had members of parliament steal from us but keep their job. I understand it, the forgiveness and reconciliation, but what about the other bits? What about the shared respect? What about the interconnectedness with those people? Is it fine for a minister like Thembi Simelane to get money from VBS? But what about the fact that VBS stole money from pensioners to give to people like Thembi Simelane? Where does it work? How does it work? As I said earlier, we recently had the release of our crime statistics from our new acting police minister, Feroz Kachalia. And it's grim reading. And you can't help it when you see those devastating numbers. When you see that as many people have died in South Africa as died in Gaza, as many South Africans have died in the period as Ukrainians have died since Russia invaded them. Where's the spirit of Ubuntu in that? Right? And now we see once again with commissions that there is no Ubuntu. We've seen people looting hospitals. And what happened? Suddenly the spirit of Ubuntu was there when people like Julius Malema were saying we shouldn't be too harsh on Kat Matlala. He had a very rough upbringing. Great Ubuntu there. What about the poor person that he killed for his wealth? The money that he stole? The fact that he kidnapped one of his business partners. Where's the Ubuntu in that? We must feel sorry because he had a bad time, and now, we live, and our politicians live in an Ubuntu-free zone. We've got to understand it. It's Ubuntu for the rest, but not for them. We recently had the G20 meeting, and we had the much spoken about declaration. And really what that was President Ramaphosa writing a wish list of things to do. And there was a whole lot of politics about it. But I took the time to read the declaration so that you wouldn't have to. You don't want to. Point number 1 of the declaration, we're only going to speak about point number 1, was that the world should live with Ubuntu. Because it's such a wonderful doctrine, such a wonderful idea, President Ramaphosa and his team said. They made it item number 1 to tell the 19 best-run countries in the world that they should have a spirit of Ubuntu. Where I don't see those people in those countries allowing their citizens to die at the rate that we allow our citizens to die, murdered without a police force. I know that you can go to those 19 other countries and walk around at midnight, even if you're a woman, in a miniskirt, and you're probably not going to get raped. In South Africa, you can't do that, but yet we want to sell them Ubuntu. Right? Those people don't have to go to pit toilets or live in shacks. But yet we want to tell the rest of the world, especially the most developed countries in the world, that we've got a great idea how you could make your country as great as South Africa. It's called Ubuntu. Really? In those countries, their politicians are held to account. If they do steal money, they go to jail. In some cases, they get executed. In some of the countries that are in the G20, we were there telling them, we've got a great idea for you guys. How about Ubuntu? It's madness. Right, so for centuries, some of the worst crimes have been committed under the guise of doing really bad things and under the guise of doing it for the greater good. Chairman Mao Zedong killed 20 million of his people for his little red book that everybody had to go around. His idea of how communism worked meant killing anybody that he decided he didn't want. Similarly with Stalin in the Soviet Union. We've seen churches burn people in the name of an inquisition to save their religion because it was a wonderful doctrine. We've seen the Catholic Church protect priests, right, that molested the most vulnerable children under the guise of the greater good, this great doctrine. We are great. So that's why I'm so scared of Ubuntu. Most wars that have ever been fought have been fought because somebody managed to get the rest of their own population to agree with them that your life is more important than that life, or this doctrine was better than their doctrine. Perhaps it's just time for South Africa to give poor old Ubuntu a break. We're just not good at it, and our politicians just use it as a cover for their crimes. Perhaps we should go back to Ubuntu once we've improved as a country. Once we find some politicians who can act honorably, who can do their jobs, can hold people to account, especially those that are closest to them, in the spirit of Ubuntu. Maybe they can think of the collective rather than the individual, as Ubuntu says we should. Maybe then, when all that is done, we'll be better at Ubuntu. And until then, let's not try and inflict this failed doctrine on other countries that already practice Ubuntu much better than we ever could. So that's all from me. Subscribe to the channel. We'll see you again on the State of the Nation. Thanks for joining me.